In India, there are various crafts, but sadly, a lot of them are becoming obsolete,
Obsolete.
and a lot of them are already extinct.
Right.
So, our idea is to give it a different cultural context for today. The craft will sustain, but we need to modify it.
Right.
We keep the essence of it, but we reimagine it.
How's the journey been? What did it start with? And how have you been conceptualizing all of that? So we'd like to understand that.
I used to travel to few clusters with my mom, and I used to hear these conversations between the weavers and their families that, it's an unfair price, but if we don't sell this, they don't have money to survive. I wanted to do something, but I did not know what.
Pashmina-centric, weave-centric, and all of that. How did that come into being?
Our idea is not to just stop at Pashmina. We want to work with different crafts.
Right.
So over the years, I want to get all the crafts.
Okay, what did you do at Geethica and how did it influence you?
So it was a very hands-on, I could see everything, experiential learning. I think Indian crafts, the fact that somebody somewhere is spending so much time hand spinning, it takes so much time, so much effort. This is luxury. Somebody spending so much time to make that very precious piece for you.
What's Ame about and what are you doing with that?
Ame stands for
Creative Spark Plug is a show. It's a black book of creative journeys. That's what we pursue to do. In this show, we record lives of people who are creatively inclined, practicing some form of creativity, going through their own creative processes, any of these and more. And we want to leave behind this capsule of stories for the ones who are inquisitive creatively, might want an insight into what a creative life looks like, or looking at ways to see how different people have maneuvered their own creative contexts. Thus, we are here today inquiring into yours and you at the heart of it. We are talking with Geethica Naidu. Did we get the name right?
Yes.
A very interesting spelling, because before I spoke with her and got her name on Instagram, I actually typed Gitika. No match. And by the time I reached there, it is Gwethica.
CA, yes.
Right. And what fascinated us and why we wanted to have this conversation with you, Geethica, is once we walked into your studio, the studio was fascinating. The kind of work and the storytelling that you had behind it was fascinating. And then Rajesh and I somehow got busy looking at details. And we realized that we were very seamlessly switching between architectural details and construction details and pashmina and fabric and color and stitches and line alignment. So first, a quick bit for anybody who gets curious about you and us is, where did you start all of this from? Where did you grow up? Where were you born? What's your story till you reached here?
Oh, well, it's a long story. I was born in Rajahmundry from Andhra.
Mm-hmm.
My schooling was there.
Mm-hmm.
I studied in Rajahmundry, and then after that, I moved to Chennai.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied at NIFT for 4 years, and that's where I pursued textiles. So after my 4 years of intense learning into textiles, I worked with various textile industries. I worked with handlooms as well. I also worked with heavy mill-made setups. So I've seen both contrasts of completely handmade things and also what a completely mechanized, machine-made thing can look like. After several years of understanding all of this, I realized I was more inclined towards something that's more handmade. That's when I switched completely into this, and I decided to start something on my own.
Right. I'll actually take you back.
Okay.
Because a part of our fascination is when we met you and we saw your space and your work, we felt that this brand and you at the heart of it had a lot of promise. So when we were talking, we were like, there's so much promise in this, right? Because we have been talking with people, who've practiced for 25 years, 30 years, won awards, and all of that. And we're fascinated by them as well. We want to know how they did it. We are fascinated with you because your work looks so much promise. And so, in some sense, we were unable to distinguish between the quantum of fascination we had with you or with somebody who seems to be 65 or 70. So we will go to that. We will inquire into that. But how did you grow up? Did you have lots of siblings and big family, breaking mangoes, or was it missionary education?
No, I had one sister. I have an older sister. It was not a missionary education, but my mom wanted me to be an all-rounder.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I've learned, I'm a Carnatic singer.
Right.
I used to play table tennis.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was learning chess at that time. And like we were doing multiple things along with education. I mean, we had many things to do during the day.
Right.
So our days were packed. Apart from this, I think over time, I stopped learning music because I got busy with education and I didn't have time for that. But as I grew up, I slowly started being drawn towards textiles because my grandmother and her mom, they were really strong women. So our household is completely these empowered women, strong women, and they had beautiful textiles. And at that time, although I was fascinated by it, I did not know it. And they also had a lot of craft in them. So they used to embroider. They used to do various kinds of embroideries, which I don't even know about. I have a couple of samples with me till now, and they're way ahead of time. They're beautifully done. Apart from this, I used to travel to few clusters with my mom. So these craft clusters.
You were a kid then, I'm assuming.
Yes.
How old were you? 6, 7, 8, 9?
I think 7.
Wow. Okay.
And I used to travel with her to clusters where, so there's one cluster called Uppada, which is very close to where we live. So this cluster has a lot of weavers. And my mom used to procure saris from them directly. And not just her, there are a lot of other customers who used to come to them. As much as I loved seeing all of that, like I also used to see a different part where, the other customers bargaining to a point where it's like they also know it's a unfair price, but they used to still bargain to that level. And I used to hear these conversations between the weavers and their families that, it's an unfair price, but if we don't sell this, they don't have money to survive. I think these used to affect me as a child as well. I used to bring these memories back. I remember having conversations, being angry about it, not being able to do anything about it because I was too young. But I let it be. Like these were just phases in my life, right? These things kept happening. But now when I think about it, when I have a lot of these questions, when I look back, I feel all these moments, all these memories have come together in a very beautiful way, which I did not realize.
Interesting you say that, because at one end you're talking about influences from your mother and your grandmother who seem to be very influential in your life. And you said something like they're very empowered women, way ahead of their times. Just an inquiry, would we know any of them?
No.
But they were crafty and they went to the village to procure this from the craftsman itself. Somewhere you spoke about feeling angry because you saw craftsmen being negotiated with to an extent where it was unfair. But they weren't left with a choice. And all of these influences came together. You also said that your sister was learning chess. Did you learn chess too?
No.
You picked up table tennis instead.
She played table tennis as well. But I never had inclination. But I was better at table tennis,
So you used to beat your sister at table tennis?
Yes.
What did she beat you at?
At studies?
She was better at studies?
Yes.
Was she your mom's favorite or you were your mom's favorite?
So
you were the younger one.
I'd like to believe I am the favorite,
You also moved from Andhra to Chennai.
Mm-hmm.
That's 2 different languages.
Yes.
And as a child, you switched to both languages? You're fluent in both right now?
I don't speak Tamil, no.
You don't speak Tamil?
Yeah.
So you know to read, write, and speak Telugu?
Yes.
You understand Tamil, you don't speak Tamil?
I understand Tamil to a certain extent. No, I don't speak Tamil.
Right. Rajesh, over to you to inquire into school mischief. And then I will again go back to her.
So, Geethica, thank you for doing this with us at a very short time. I think we met 3 days back and now we are recording with you. So, and like Bashob mentioned, the lovely space. I think from the space we got attracted to your creative side, that is the textile design. So, how did you get into textile design? Did you always want to do textile designing? Or, okay, before we get there, are you a fashion designer or are you a textile designer?
I'm a textile designer.
So what's the difference between the two?
So fashion designing includes a lot to do with designing the silhouettes, the stitching of the fabric. But textile design comes before that. So we design the fabric itself. So once the fabric is designed, it then goes to the fashion designer who then stitches.
So you understand the fiber, you understand where the source of the fiber is from and the dyeing process and all of that. Does that help you design a lot of textile?
Yes. So textile is a vast subject, right? There is fiber, there is yarn, there is the way you spin it, then dyeing. All of these are separate categories. So a lot of people choose a certain part and they deep dive into it. There's block printing, there's embroidery, there's weave. I am interested in a bit of all of this. Because when you know everything, the output is going to be magical rather than just knowing one part of it. That's what we also try to do at Army. We take our time, our processes are slow, but we ensure we know what we're doing.
So did you get into textile designing by default or this is what you wanted to do? How was it? How did you get into this?
No. Fun fact, I was applying for fashion design. I did not. The seats were full. Since the seats were full, I moved to textiles, wanting to switch back after first year. So we had this choice where first year is a common subject across courses. And we had a chance to switch after first year, which I wanted to. But once I went into the college and once I spoke to the seniors, I saw what kind of work was happening in fashion versus textile. I did not want to. Yeah.
And you also into painting and Carnatic music and all of that.
Yes.
So how much of that influence does it have on your design process now?
Interesting. So painting, definitely, because painting helps me to understand color very differently. And I think the strokes, even if we were to now make an artwork, I look at it through paint. My medium of expression is paint. So that way it definitely merges through textiles. There's actually music even in textiles. When we weave, there's a rhythmic sound that comes. So everything that we do, even the charaka when we are spinning. So all of this also becomes music. But what I sing is Carnatic music, which is a lot different. But I like humming when I sing. So even my practices happen at the studio in my cabin. So all of it becomes a very seamless medium for me.
So textile design was a 4-year course?
Yes.
And once you passed out of college, what was your journey till now?
To graduate in the last semester, we have to do a graduation project. So actually after every semester, we have to do short internships leading up to a graduation project. So that will be our industry experience. So that's what I began to do in Bangalore. I was working at Himatsinka. Then I continued to work there. After that, I moved to Mulberry, again in Bangalore. So these are the two proper mill-made setups, right? Like things were fast. Like you would design something and you can see it by evening. Like the turnaround time was really quick. But although one thing that also was happening is recklessness that you would have. Like if you want to see a pattern and you have 10 options, you would try all of it because you're reckless about it. The process somehow did not sit well with me. And after 2 years, I wanted to pause and give this whole thing a thought. Also, at the same time, a lot of other things were influencing me, like being conscious, sustainability. all of this. And I wanted to bring that into my practice as well. And eventually, I think from within, I knew that I should not continue there. And that's when I took a break.
So as a textile designer, what are the options of career choices a student who passes out from the college? What are the career options they have?
There are quite a few standard options where people can go into an industry setup. They can work with brands. Otherwise, they can also get into research. Research is something that I'm seeing happen a lot these days, researching about different crafts. So like I said, textile has various aspects to it. It gives you a wide range of options. You can choose to be a dyeing expert or a embroidery expert, print, weave. So I think the options are wide. It's just that if you want to do something within the industry, you have to look for the right place for you. If not, I think you will have to take time to understand what it is that you like. One thing that I would feel I could have done is streamline this when I was in college itself. So I would have immediately started this instead of then going into industry. But I guess you'll have to try out everything to understand what it is that you actually like.
So, I mean, the reason why I ask is like, I'm an architect.
Okay.
And as architects, we also have we'll do a range of things. Music, drawing. A lot of them also get into fashion designing. It's always there, depending on what choices or the growing up years. Somebody wants to play music, somebody wants to do modeling, somebody wants to do painting, somebody wants to play instruments. And these are all over and above the architectural practice that we all do. And I think this is what we have also understood after about 20 odd episodes, that every creative person has multiple hobbies, or not just hobbies, which they pursue as well. One of the things, the connect that I have with textile designing is my thesis project was on textile binny mills. So entire binny mills, the defunct complex that was there. And that's when I studied a bit on the process of textile, the dyeing, the fabrics, fibers, and the embroidery, the printing. In printing itself, there's so much options.
Yes.
You have digital printing, you have block printing, you have hand painting. So with such a wide range available, how does one choose that this is the direction that I want to go in?
Oh, I think they should know it themselves. Like once you take up a project, so it's a 4-year course, right? Like, okay, leave out the first year because it's common for everyone. But from 3rd year onwards, you have various projects to pick up. In this, you will have print, you will have weaving, you will have, in print itself, you'll have block, digital. So you get to choose. And within those 3 years, actually the first year itself, I knew I am towards weave. So as you work on each of those, I think you will pick up on what it is that you want to do. So college itself should give you that understanding. If not, working outside will.
When you moved, right, did you leave these craftsmen behind, or did you continue to go back with them? Did you pick up something there that you feel you connect to today?
So my mom used to pick up saris from them. She consistently went back. But no, I have not worked with them. I felt like I'll come back and I'll do something to change the way things are. I was too young to be telling this to myself, but I said it and I left the place. I was upset. It continued.
Upset because you're leaving, but because you're already carrying the load of feeling unfair.
Feeling unfair. And the fact that I was not able to do anything. I wanted to do something that day. Like it had to be then. But the fact that I had to grow up, and I don't know, like it was a very heavy feeling. I haven't had the chance to go back to them yet.
Did you work with other people or other craftsmen in Chennai or from Chennai?
Yes.
This is pre-NIFT is what I'm assuming.
Pre-NIFT, no. Due after NIFT.
After NIFT. So to me, Chennai happened, and at some point of time, college happened. But we also feel that there's an influence of art that came in. Where did that come in from? And the fact that you put out things.
My mom paints. My mom used to paint when I was in her belly. She used to paint even after. I've never had a formal education on painting, so to say. So art has been a part of my childhood, and I was always inclined towards art. I was sketching a lot. I was drawing. So my biology sketchbooks were nicer than my math books.
Same was the case with me.
Yeah, I used to take an effort to, beautify them. So design, it's not just about sketching, but, presenting and all of that was important to me. So that inclination was always there for me. I knew I would get into art at some point, but I also liked nature. So I wanted to take biology. It was just a very silly thought, but I've moved into BIPC, so that's biology, zoology, physics, chemistry. Then I knew that was not for me. Then that's when I moved to art.
Right. So let's connect the dots here. Mother and grandmother, very influential. They're artistic. They worked with craftsmen. All of these influences are there. You as a kid visited these craftsmen. You had a few experiences which got in this feeling of wanting to do something. Art was always a part of it. You changed places as well. Then picked up biology, chemistry, and physics while knowing that that is not what your story is. And then NIFT happened. And there is where you already knew you were weave inclined, but all of this is coming together. Your art, your craft interface, you're wanting to work with them, and strong women influences in your life. And after that, Himatsika.
Yes.
Okay, what did you do at Himatsika and how did he influence you? Was he a mentor figure? Was he just an employer, or did you learn a lot there? How long?
I learned a lot there. It was a great internship. I loved my time there. It was a very short internship, but so by the time I got into college, I became this very serious student with a mission. Like I had to, I don't
Mission
know
being? What the mission
I
was?
have no idea. I had to do really well and I had to be the best. It was in my head. And Himatsinka was, at that time, according to my faculty, nobody's entered and it's a tough one to crack. So that was like a challenge for me. I have to do it. So it was a great experience as a student as well. Like I said, things were magical. Like I used to design something and I used to see the fabric sample by evening. Very impressive stuff. It's actually in a very large property. It feels less like a mill, and you could take a lot of nature walks. We designed something. If I want to see what's happening on the loom, I could just take a 5-minute walk and see where the looms are, how my fabric is being woven. So it was a very hands-on, like I could see everything, experiential learning. So as a student, it was very different and new for me.
And you interned there?
I interned there, then I continued my work there.
Did you do your final project also there?
Yes. So my internship is the graduation.
Right, got it. And how long did you work there?
I began, I think, close to a year.
Close to a year. And in this while, were you a lone wolf, or were you learning from experiences of Mr. Himatsika, or how did that work out?
So Mr. Himatsinka actually deals more with the financial part of things. The design team is a little different, but he did have a design inclination. He used to come quite often, but he wasn't the one guiding us. So we had another design director called Jayashri Podar.
Right.
The designers were we had about 8 to 9 designers, and I was one of the interns there when I started. The experience, like I said, was great.
Yeah, quantifying that experience, was it a lot of hands-on work? Was it understanding how it works in the industry? What did you learn about business there?
Oh, nothing. Nothing. And I did not want to learn about business there somehow. It was something too large, and I did not like the machines. I did not like the large setup of, the factory setup. I did not want to learn business there.
In some sense, it's self-contradictory because you're saying you learned a lot there, but you did not.
I learned a lot in terms of design.
Right. Yeah. Right. And who was influential there? Did somebody handhold you or help you? Or it was a lot of exploration?
We definitely had mentors.
Mm-hmm.
What's AME about and what are you doing with that?
AME stands for Art Meets Expression. I think the name itself suggests the work that we do. And it also has various meanings. It means tortoise in Kannada. It refers to a female, women in Telugu. It also means soul and rain in other languages, Japanese and Spanish, I think. So it has a global reach. connectability to people. Of course, we went through various names, and I knew when I saw Ame, I heard Ame, I knew that was the one. So the idea came up 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We officially registered on paper last year.
Right. Yeah, there's a gap in between. That means, Rajesh, 2017, she graduated, right? She was already into making fabric. She worked with Geethica for about a year, 18, 19.
19 I got married.
Right. That's the gap. And then
COVID
there was
happened.
COVID.
Yes.
Then COVID happened.
So basically she got married and then the COVID said, Bhaiya, ghar pe raho.
Yes.
Right.
I resigned before my marriage. I resigned and I was like, I'm going back home. And I moved back to Hyderabad. And then this happened, so I moved back to Bangalore.
Right. So COVID happened right after you got married.
Yes.
It's 2
A
years
year
of
after.
COVID
Yeah,
and marriage.
yeah.
So COVID, marriage, honeymoon, all two is one time gap.
Marriage, COVID. Yeah. No, there was a year gap. COVID happened 2020.
2020 March.
2020 to
You went to lockdown on
2021.
22nd March 2020.
Yeah.
2019 I got married. May 2019.
Right. And that was a gap year, COVID time.
Yes.
Then you came out and you started conceptualizing Ame.
Yes.
You weren't busy anywhere, weren't doing projects or anything like that.
I was taking up small projects. I was doing a research project for Vimor. It's based in Bangalore. So they have a lot of old textiles.
Mm-hmm.
So my work was to study the textile.
Right.
So it was all based on textiles itself.
Right. Ame.
I think we'll leave it to her. She needs to tell us about it.
Yeah, the conceptualizing of Ame.
How's the journey been? What did it start with? All about Ame and how you've been conceptualizing all of that. So we'd like to understand that.
I think even I've been trying to decode this for myself for quite some time.
We'll help you with it. Don't worry.
But I think that the phase where I wanted to do something, but I did not know what. There were too many things, too many roads that I wanted to address. One was wanting to find my purpose, helping somebody, like doing something meaningful. Being able to align all of this with my skill. I think that's where, although I'm simplifying it now, after a chaotic brainstorming and too many discussions with my mentors, my coaches, I more or less landed on this structure where I don't want to just make products. See, I see textiles very differently because I understand textiles. And I feel an ex-person who does not know textiles is not able to see the value in it because they don't know what goes behind textiles. So one mission is I want to educate people on what goes behind a textile. So that means also I speak about the people behind it, the stories. So bringing out their stories. That became another parallel to it.
You're focusing on textile and not fashion.
Yes.
So the textile that you're designing gets used in what all kind of spaces or what kind of purposes?
She said a few things that was very interesting, Rajesh. The point of conceptualizing that she underwent is intriguing to me because I think we all undergo that process or a similar pattern. We all undergo our own journeys. I caught on to what she said, saying that I wanted to do something, right? She'd already had an experience. So I think that's what I see as at the heart of things. One. The second aspect was different things that are components to what she wanted to do, which is what she was mentioning in terms of she wanted the conscious space to be there. She was looking for meaning in life and purpose, aligning skill to purpose and wanting to do something of her own. So these are in some sense the cornerstone in my head that I kind of take away from her. That she had a set of skills, she was aware of it. She wanted to marry this with a sense of purpose or meaningfulness in life. Second cornerstone. Third cornerstone was she wanted something of herself. Would that be right if I create that kind of a framework for what you were going through then? Or am I simplifying it too much?
You are, but it's good.
Right. I mean, I don't expect the process to be easy at all.
Yeah.
You also mentioned that you had multiple mentors and coaches. Who are these mentors and coaches and how did they assist you?
I have mentors from college, and most of the times I understand things better when I'm talking to somebody about it.
Right. It's a reflective conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. We hope we do the same with you.
Yes.
But not to be your mentors, but our conversations help us understand us. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I had a lot of friends who became my mentors, who I can speak to, and in the process, they don't have to say anything. It's just me talking to them, and I pick something up.
Right.
And apart from this, I have a coach who brings in a lot of awareness about me. Yeah, I think that's one of the beautiful part, because initially when I used to say something, this anger that I described about the incidents that happened when I was young. But after, these sessions, I realized it's me feeling helpless. So I think in order to align my purpose and wanting to understand what it is that I actually want to do, I had to speak to these people and, write down all of these points.
When you say a coach is a professional coach, career coach, or a therapist kind of coach?
A professional coach.
A professional coach. And you're working with him or her even now?
Yes.
Interesting that you say that, because, and you find benefit in somebody who helps you through this whole process.
Yes.
While you use your friends and family as bouncing boards to clarify your own thoughts and whatever is running in your mind.
I think there's a certain kind of filter with him.
Right.
So friends and family, they've known me for some time.
For certain kind of filter with the coach.
With the coach.
Right. And friends
and
family
family,
know you.
Yes. And also, I can just pick up my phone and call them anytime.
Right.
With the coach, I have a certain time allotted.
Right.
Yeah.
To clarify yourself.
Yes.
And this helped you crystallize, Amy.
Yes.
How long did it take for you?
I think right after I resigned, when I told you that I moved back to Hyderabad.
Right.
That's in 2018 December.
Right.
2019, then I got married. So 2018 onwards, I knew that I'm resigning because I want to do something. And I have to let this go. I'm getting too comfortable here. I have to let this go in order to be able to do something. I had the idea, but I did not know what at that time.
Right.
But I had to take that time to reflect on myself.
And all of this was a simultaneous process. Your personal life coming in, you getting married, changing cities.
Too many years.
And also saying, I want to do something. I want it to be meaningful. I have this set of skill sets. I've given up my comfort zone to hopefully have a work baby. And AME happened at some point of time. There was a coach involved. There are friends and family who were bouncing boards and had to clarify your thoughts. In all of this, the work that we saw here, or we see here right now in your studio, is Pashmina-centric, weave-centric, and all of that. How did that come into being? Are they the similar experiences of your childhood, or something you picked up during college or at Himmat-Sikka, or a brainchild of your own, the direction itself?
So there was no direction pre-planned for Pashmina. So the idea of, or what we do at Ame is, we pick a craft. We understand the history of the craft. We understand where the craft is at now. And then we see what we can do to sustain it for the future. So this, to simplify, this is what we do. And our idea is not to just stop at Pashmina. We want to work with different crafts.
Right.
So over the years, I want to get all the crafts. I'm being very optimistic, but all the crafts.
I mean, in the space of hand-woven fabric?
Yes.
Or in general crafts? Like tomorrow, would you do pottery?
Oh, I would love to. We also include other crafts like these. The first collection has brass as a craft on the buttons. So they're all handcrafted. So there was another project that I did outside before Ame where I worked with pottery buttons, baked buttons.
Right.
I don't think I've thought of it, but I might be inclined more towards textile because of the love that I have for textiles.
Sure.
But whatever comes in the way.
So let me put it this way. Will it be okay for us to assume that Ame at this point of time is meant to be a multidisciplinary studio?
Yes.
Which may be focusing on hand-woven fabric or textiles at this point of time, but will always be craft-centric?
Yes.
And the pursuit that it will have is to get into a certain craft, understand or soak yourselves in that craft, and see how you can add value to it, Sustainably.
Yes.
And when you say sustainably, what do you exactly mean in your context of things?
So when I say sustain it, I want it to last.
The business of it, or the craft in itself, or the process in itself, what do you want to last?
The craft in itself. I want the craft to last.
So are you trying to bring in a new dimension to the craft, or add in your own quirk to it, or doing something to leverage the craft? I mean, do you feel that the craft is going to die, that you're trying to save it? What aspect of it?
So in India, there are various crafts, but sadly, a lot of them are becoming extinct, obsolete,
Right. Obsolete.
and a lot of them are already extinct.
Right.
So our idea is to give it a different cultural context for today. When I say Pashmina, one misconception that everybody has is it comes from Kashmir.
Right.
But in fact, the origin is Ladakh.
Interesting.
Yes. And also Pashmina, everybody associates with the shawl.
Right.
But when will you get out of it if you're only restricted to a shawl? So every time you think of Pashmina, you're only wearing it as a shawl. So it goes as an accessory over something.
Right.
Which then becomes, a lot of people think it's only for winters or traditional events. But now, I want a modern woman to wear it. I want anybody like who's going for a board meeting, an Indian who's going abroad, who wants to represent India. I think these become statement pieces. But then it can't be a shawl. You should also fit in the board meeting.
Right.
And that's why we have these blazers. So the idea here is to reinterpret for the younger generation. The craft will sustain, but we need to modify it.
Right.
We keep the essence of it, but we reimagine it.
Correct.
Okay, this is exactly what I wanted to get to. So you are now working on transforming Pashmina from, or rather transforming the entire identity of Pashmina from a shawl to a fabric that can go into any form.
Yes.
Firstly, before even we get to the idea of it, so there would you be calling yourself a fashion designer or a textile designer?
I think I'm just an artist who's trying to express.
Nice. So, and now when you're doing this with Pashmina and you're understanding the deeper nuances of what goes behind it, that is right from how it's grown, how it's sourced, how it's cleansed to woven to made into a fabric. Now, the same thing, you have multiple art forms which are there. That's what we discussed. So you have the Pashmina, you have the silk, you have in silk itself, I think we have some 10 different varieties. One is Banaras, one is Kanchivaram, one is Tanjore, and number of those. So how do you see yourself working around all of these? Is there a thought you have already given on that? Or is, because there are multiple things that are coming to me now. So, but now, I mean, we'll get to that. So what's your thought process like? Have you already thought of something? Is it something that you still need to think about? Would like to hear on that.
So I don't think we have a structure that we will be following throughout. The idea is to go with the research. So when we are studying the craft, this is what we wanted to do. And that's why we did this. And in the beginning, we were thinking of dyeing the yarns. But we chose not to because it comes in beautiful colors naturally. And to be able to speak about Pashmina, about the rawness of Pashmina. You know, we were going all the way to Ladakh with going to the nomads. We wanted to show it in its authentic form. So these insights would come as we are researching, and we want to maintain this for every craft. So for every craft, we're going to begin with research, and what we do with it is dictated by the research itself, so to say. Yeah.
Just a little technical. How does Pashmina get its color?
So it's a goat. Pashmina comes from a goat.
So the color, natural color, is because of the color of the goat, or is it?
So do you know how Pashmina grows? Or?
No.
Okay.
Go for it.
Please go ahead.
So the goat has two kinds of fibers. There's one long fiber which always remains on the goat. And Pashmina is the fiber which grows only in winters. So it grows when the temperatures drop down to as low as -45.
-45, okay.
And that is when the goat stimulates a protein which protects itself. So that growth, the extra fiber that grows is Pashmina. So this fiber, on the onset of summer, it does not require it, which naturally loosens from the body. So when it naturally loosens, that's when the nomads comb it out. So they have a tool which combs out the Pashmina. And that's also one of the reasons why Pashmina is combed out and not sheared. So one of the hair always remains on the goat.
So it's not really harming the goat in any way.
It's not. It's necessary, in fact.
Yeah.
It's necessary for it to have a hygienic life.
Otherwise, it will not survive the summers.
Yes. So that is what Pashmina is. So, and also these goats naturally have these spots. So from the area where it's a off-white muddy tone, you get an off-white shade of Pashmina. Where it's a black, you would get a grayish, brownish shade. And it is also said that, the food that they eat determines what color it is. Also, the harsher the winter, the softer your fiber. And Ladakh is also situated in one of the highest areas, right? So they experience the harshest winters. So Ladakh is known for their gold standard of Pashmina.
So how do colors like red, yellow, blue, green, all of that come in? Those are
They're dyed. They're all dyed.
They're not the natural color.
So they can be achieved naturally also, but the shade that you get is different. If it's something vibrant, a bright color usually is not possible in natural dye. Also, natural dyes on exposure to sunlight for a long time, they do fade out.
So this also means that one is, since it's in the natural form, so it is a necessity for the goat to shed that hair, and then that's taken and woven and processed and then woven into fabric. In the natural form, the quantities are very, very less. And is that what governs the cost of the fabric? I mean, the end product?
Yes, definitely yes. Also the duration, right? Now, once the Pashmina is combed out, we get the Pashmina, and if we run out of the yarn or the fiber, we wait for the next season.
Next cycle, okay.
Yeah, it's a rare fiber and it's the softest.
What is the difference between wool and Pashmina?
Pashmina is also wool. There are different kinds of wool.
Right.
Pashmina, there's sheep wool, there's yak wool. So there are all kinds of wools. But the feel of it, the coarseness of it. Yak wool is very coarse.
Yak wool is a tough fur.
Yeah, that's all just hair.
Basically, I'm asking from a layman point of view. Wool is animal fur that we use for our own purpose. Would that be right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Pashmina is within that a category wherein this under fur or down feather equivalent kind of a thing in really low temperatures, which they need to shed during summers. You capture that for your own device. It also helps the animals. But it is a subset or under the big umbrella of fur itself. Wool.
Wool,
right.
Yes.
We were at why Pashmina becomes so expensive. So then how is it commercially viable, and how do we have so many brands claiming to be pure Pashmina? And because this seems like, there's a limited resource, and it depends on the number of goats which are existing. And it's not something you just grow and it grows on its own. You need to first raise the goat, and then you need to have the goats growing the thing in the cycle of the season. So commercially viability, how do you see the commercial viability of all of this?
It is definitely pricey. So a lot of weavers mix it with other kinds of wool. So the percentage of Pashmina drops down. They blend it with other wool. Also, the quantity that you get from each goat is very less. After cleaning, it drops down. Like let's say 300 grams of wool, when we clean it, becomes 60 grams.
Whoa. Okay.
That's 1/5.
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah. So the quantity that you get is very limited.
And
all these brands who are claiming, few do have 100% Pashmina like they say, but most of them don't. Although they claim it, there's a fine print that we don't read.
Okay, let's say a pure Pashmina in a 1 meter fabric, which is a meter by a regular, I don't know what would be the width, about a 4 feet width, would be the, or
48
does it come
inches
in?
or 54 inches is what
But those are commercial fabric. Those are commercial fabric.
Correct.
So in a hand woven ones, you can do from narrow to wider.
Yeah, so
depending on the
a
handloom.
shawl, a stole, they all have different widths. So if it's a stole, it's a very thin fabric.
So a meter by meter would have how many grams of pashmina if it is pure pashmina?
So you would get about close to a little more than half a meter from one goat.
Okay, from that 60 grams.
Yeah.
This also takes me back to my childhood when I grew up in Haryana with my grandmom till the age of 5, and she used to do that charka thing with the cotton, and then my granddad used to weave the ropes out of jute, and then we used to use that in the charpai. And some of our fabrics were like khadi, which my grandmom used to do it in the house. And then a lot of other things that they used to do with waste fabric, like over the years, if the saris have gone worn out and the other clothings have gone worn out, they would make daris out of it. So they would rip it apart, make it into string kind of things, and then weave an entire dari.
Yeah.
Which was very interesting.
Yeah.
I think that art form is being lost today, and you are doing probably your bit to ensure that these things, when the dari is very, very coarse part of it, but even pashmina and other things. So that's great that you start from there. And also we've seen that you do start from the very base. Like even if you have to get into the details of the handloom, understanding the technical part of it, I think you've done that, because
Yes.
that's what we saw on your Insta page as well. So what is the need to go to the grassroots level to understand things as a designer? Because
I think mainly it's my curiosity.
Right.
But you designing after knowing everything, like knowing the history of it, what actually happens now, the insights that you have to be able to design something new is a lot more.
So
like
how does
since
that-
I work with the fiber, I can tweak it from the fiber level. So my fabric is very different. Like what we do is not available because we build it from the fiber level. It becomes difficult to duplicate it.
Is it possible to blend a pashmina wool with a different kind of wool at the fiber level to get the strings?
Yeah.
And then that made into a fabric
Mhm.
by the weaving process.
Mhm.
And that level also you can have a blending happening,
Yes.
where you say 2 of wool, 1 of silk,
Yeah.
2 of something else. So all of that is possible.
Yeah.
And how many designers actually get into that grassroots level to design?
I think to make business sense, people work with vendors. Like you pick up what's already there. If you now sit to research from that level, you will be spending a lot of time. You then won't be able to create X amount of collections per year. So we don't have that limitation. We also don't follow any forecasts or trends. Like I said, our research is what guides us. Be it clothing, let's say we pick up another craft tomorrow. If the craft tells us that we have to move into home furnishing, we do that. So we're not bound by any of these norms that are there. So that makes it easier for us. But having said that, like I said, businesses choose to do it with what's already available because it makes business sense.
So what would we call AME? AME would be a R&D space. Is it a design space, or is it commercially viable space? Where do you see?
I wanted to sustain.
Mhm.
So when I started it, I'm still not looking at it as a core business. But at some point, I will have to think of the business aspect as well. Like I said, we're conscious. At that moment, whatever we feel is the right thing to do is what we choose to do.
So as of today, in the space that you are, it's more of a R&D and then into commercial viability. There are a few other agencies or houses that are working in a similar platform. Like I think from what I remember, I'd come across Tata's doing something like this in Gujarat, where they picked up the art form there, the craft, and grew something out of it, and they made that into a brand. So are there any more design houses like this who are working in this particular space?
A lot of brands actually work with different crafts. So what we're also trying to do in the process is to educate others along with us. As we learn something, we try to tell others that this is what happens behind the craft. I think that's one of the differences. But there are brands who are working with various crafts. And also, like I said, our idea is to move from craft to craft. And the other crafts work with one craft and they go deep dive and then they're there for quite some time. Yeah.
See, Pashmina, the art form, craft form, however much you want to, whichever way you look at it, it is limited by resource at the start of it. And that isn't scalable. So if you're starting off with an identity or a narrative, like you said, it's sustainable, it's done out of this, it does not harm the animal, you're trying to keep that craft alive and looking at repurposing the utility of that craft form. You're right, that the moment you say Pashmina, the first thing that comes to us is a shawl. And you're getting into a space wherein you're pulling things out of Pashmina, but the applications are different. Even if it is garments, it's different, right? This whole thing is limited by craft. Not only that, it's also limited by season because you don't get the material except for that. It's like mangoes come only in summer, so does Pashmina.
Yes.
Right? They should have been married, but they're not. You have to wait for the next cycle. And that is also limited by the number of goats you have or whatever it is. Right? How do you intend to scale? And where do you see business viability as an idea? The question that I'm also getting into is, was celebration of craft at your heart, which is very clear? You've actually given an answer to that. Did you look at it as an undertaking? Or did you look at it as a possibility that will also be a business?
I don't want Ame to just sustain. I want it to thrive. And another important aspect that I wouldn't change about crafts is it goes through phases. Take Pashmina, there's a season. And it's a natural season. And I think there are a few things that we have to obey. I do not think the way around is to trying to, come up with fiber during the off season also. If it's meant to be rare, that's the beauty of it. And people have to wait. I don't think we should go around trying to mass produce and keep up to, all the demands. It is rare and that's the beauty of it. And every craft that way is time consuming. A lot of crafts are time consuming. And the current issue is that people are trying to skip or jump that time frame and trying to shorten, like take shortcuts. That's where the actual cultural aspect is lost. And we're trying to commercialize it. A lot of crafts are born in humble homes as a part of their pastime or a hobby. Even a lot of crafts that they follow, the nomads follow, are done only during their free time, their leisure time, because they're busy throughout. Now, if I were to go to them and say, stop all that, I need you to produce X amount of fabric, 9 to 5 job, it does not make sense. And I want to respect their culture, their traditions, and their way of life. And that's where I want to fit in. I want Ame to be a business, a very unique business. And people who will understand it will be a part of it.
So you are essentially saying that Ame as a business is going to be limited by the limitations of the craft itself.
Yes.
And that is one way in which you respect the craft that you're working with.
Yes.
Got it. Now, a little bit into the craft that you've chosen or the art form that you've chosen, Pashmina. Your brand is about impacting them, right?
Yes.
One of the things is your anger towards people being unfair, the buyer of a certain art form or a craft form being unfair, and utilizing their position of strength against the position of not so much strength of the craftsman. If they didn't sell, they would perish, right? So they have to sell at a discounted cost. And that unfairness has stuck around with you, that made you angry as a child. And now in your own enterprise, you intend to change that.
Yeah.
Right? How will that pan out in Pashmina, or how AAB is working with Pashmina?
We interfere, or rather, we would like to be a part of every process that's involved. The combing, the spinning, the weaving, all of it. In this process, what we're also trying to do is to remove the middlemen. It is difficult. It takes time, but our essential goal is to remove the middlemen and trying to work directly with these craftspeople. So that way we're benefiting, the benefit, whatever is going, goes directly to them. And for our story building also, it's essential that we work with them. So a lot of, actually every craft is a hyperlocal. They're all hyperlocal. That means it exists within that region because of the people or the land, the geography, all of that. Pashmina comes from Ladakh because of its geographical conditions. And the people add to the cultural relevance to it. So to study that also, we have to work directly with the craftsmen.
Aren't the middlemen a part of that ecosystem? For example, if you are a Pashmina craftsman, let's say you do the combing, your brother does the
Spinning.
spinning or whatever. So there are 4 processes. And then you have the product, right? Then there's another person in the village who takes the product and goes to the neighboring bigger village. So isn't he a part of the system? When you talk about cutting out the middlemen, aren't you in some ways being unfair to the guy who has been relevant so far, ensuring that Pashmina reaches the next guy?
I think it's also to do with the malpractices. Not everybody is honest.
Yeah, not every middleman. So we have middlemen as well. Like one of the nomads' grandkids works for us. He becomes our middleman. So he makes sure the fiber is combed out, it's all authentic, no mixing happens in between when we are not looking at it. He becomes our middleman, but there are a few we can trust, there are a few we cannot. And I would want the middleman also to be a part of Army. Somebody I can trust at least.
Another inquiry to me. I get the fact that you pick up different art forms, craft forms, extinct and otherwise, and play with it and make it. But if you look at what we have at hand as a family, you play with machine. But fast forward to a projected future. What would you think you would have done with the craft form? Not exactly what you would have done, or what you would have done with the craft form of Pashmina, or what Amy would have done with the craft form of Pashmina. That tomorrow somebody can look back and say that, hey, they elevated the craft, believing that that's your premise.
Okay, there's another theory for this. So India is known for khadi. You know, immediately when somebody comes from abroad, they think of khadi, Gandhi, the charaka and all that. And their immediate go-to location is Khadi Gramodyog. Everybody must have heard. They unfortunately do not have khadi, authentic khadi. And the price point at which they sell, I think it starts from 250 rupees onwards per meter. That's not the rightful pricing according to me. In my opinion, we have so many brands who price their products. It's up to them. But let's say, even if it's going up to 1,000 per meter, in relation to a khadi, which is hand spun, hand woven, which one would you value more? Unfortunately, pricing it is what we immediately associate with value. I think Indian crafts, although they're made in humble hands, they are luxury to me. The fact that somebody somewhere is spending so much time hand spinning, it takes so much time, so much effort, hand spinning, hand weaving, and this is luxury. Like somebody spending so much time to make that very precious piece for you, and we discount all of this to coming down to 250 rupees a meter. Our aim is to take Indian crafts and place it in the luxury market. And not just in India. I want this to be a global luxury brand. And I want people to associate with Indian crafts as luxury. as a high-end, a valuable product.
Yes.
Yes.
I love that you said that. I have a twisted inquiry to make it. But when you create something as luxury, doesn't it take away from the heart of a craft which is built for larger relevance? Pashmina is, let's say, the way it developed at the inception of it. Pashmina wasn't meant for you and I. It was meant for that ecosystem of Ladakh. People who stayed there, the animals came from there, the winters are like that, the summer was a lean period. They had to, it was an ecosystem that had relevance there. Plus, now it is aspirational, exclusive.
Yeah.
And we are trying to get that and own a piece of that. And we are allowed to do it. The reason why something is an aspiration is because it's an aspiration. It's difficult to get. We all want a piece of it. The moment that makes it luxurious, difficult to procure, it's unaffordable for most. It allows a very small set of people to own it. So aspiration value is more, but most people can't have access to it. By being that, doesn't it make it discriminatory? Whereas at the heart of the craft was the relevance to ensure that people had ideal clothing in a certain context, or ideal warmth, or whatever it was in a certain context. Wasn't that a part of the narrative of the craft itself? The intersectionality of that.
Definitely, but there are different brands to do it. Like, I mean, this is just the positioning where I'm looking at for Ame. There are multiple brands who are doing this, but I want to stand for something different.
You want to be the aspirant.
Yeah.
And that's the rule. I completely take that. I mean, I'm inquiring into it so that I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I completely take that. I love what you do. So
Thank you.
The questions are only to clarify for a larger audience. How does one pull down this? What I also hear, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that it's a choice you're making to be somebody who's aspiration. And you will do it with multiple crafts and platforms.
Yeah.
And that is why what AME stands for.
Ame. Ame.
I hear that. I'm actually done.
So I just want to close it with one, since you mentioned that you wanted to become a luxury brand and stuff. So is it right for us to say that Ame can be seen in future a luxury version of Fab India? I'm just assuming. I'm just thinking out loud with you. Because if you're looking at amalgamation of a lot of crafts, which Fab India also does, I don't know what, but they are also come across as a Indian brand doing, putting across the craft of India on a platform which is available to everybody else. So what's the difference in the...
Fab India is about India, Indian clothing, Indian crafts. I don't know if the owner is from India.
He's not an Indian.
He's not, right?
He's not an Indian.
But what they essentially do is very traditional stuff. What we also want to stay away from is, now I see a lot of crafts only in the form of saris. Now my mom's gonna wear it. My grandmom's gonna wear it. I would wear it, but to an event. And that's it. But I want a craft to become a part of your daily life. Like if you want to wear Pashmina, something hand spun, something crafted, casually outside, but fitting into the crowd, right? Like you most of the times why we choose not to wear is because we might stand out. It's too traditional. I'm looking too auntie like, or their own reasons. So we want the younger generation to wear. That's where the future is. And I don't want to be stubborn and say, this is how the craft is, and I will do what it was doing so many years back. It needs to be redefined. And Fab India also, they're a great brand. No, I don't see it equivalent to Fab India.
Understood. So I think from a tradition, from a perspective that, we're looking at something which is very traditional
Yes.
to a traditional art form taken globally which the
Modernizing
world
it,
can wear.
yes,
Which
modernizing.
in a modernized way, which the world can wear or the world can use.
Yes.
Interesting.
September, you're launching?
I launch and go profitable.
I think that's been great.
Yes.
And I thank you for doing this with
Thank
us in
you
such
so
a
much.
short time.
And I want to,
Yeah,
I'm waiting for September.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, it's a great thing that you're doing with the art and the craft, and then taking it to a design through the design, taking it to another level, giving it a new identity. And I'm sure we look forward to not just Pashmina, but a lot more of these traditional art forms and fabrics and fibers. Yeah, and coming out, getting redefined for the world. So definitely we're excited for that.
Thank
We
you so
will
much.
look at that in future. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this with us and giving us so much time and in such a short period. So
Thank you so much. I had a great
Wish you
time.
all the best.
Thank you.
A really heartfelt wish you all the best.
Thank you so
I really
much.
look forward to you going to the heights that you will.
Thank you so much.
And I know there were a couple of inquiries that I made got tricky, but I appreciate the boldness in which you took it. I mean, it's crazy. It's heartening for me to see somebody having that kind of clarity and that stance.
Thank
but
you.
that definitely gave me a clarity in the sense that, we're not that we are doing anything out of the world to save something. So we're also like a regular thing, and it also gives me a reason to redefine and look at what I am doing in a much better way. I would definitely love to probably see how we can collaborate with you
Mhm.
in future to just see how we can redefine a lot of stuff.
Definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a learning that I did. This conversation had crystallized that. Sometimes, or rather, extreme linguistics of crystallized. She feel a lot of, brings a lot of value to it, which is that it's okay for anybody to decide to own a space and figure it out in the process. It is not necessary. I mean, and she clearly, it comes out of her. And it's absolutely, she just owns the space like she's on the ball and she'll figure out where she's going. I think that's amazing. That's the part of where she's coming from. And I applaud.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.